Exciting. Bismillah. All right. I am Afshan Malik, and I'm here with my wonderful friend, Eman Manigat. And Eman, we're just going to have a conversation. I don't have your bio. I don't know my own bio. Here together because I met you several years ago, and we were both on this path of pursuing Islamic knowledge. And we both had different challenges and struggles. And so I was in a conversation last night, actually. And it was a really fun conversation because I got to reflect on how far I've come. And I think, and your background's in like therapy, so you understand that's really important to do, to like pause and think back. And I don't do that very often, but I should. And so I remember, and you could unmute and just chime in, as you have comments. But
Yeah.
I remember when I was, because you have, wait, so wait, how many kids do you have? What are you doing right
Two,
now? Two
two.
kids?
Yeah. And I'm studying university, so it's been a journey. And I love to see that maturity in you, Afsha, where you're like, I have to
Yeah.
pause and I have to think and reflect. MashaAllah. I love seeing that.
I'm not saying I've done it very well, but sometimes I have to sit down and I have to think
Right,
back.
right.
So this, I mean, it was really about a question about like this journey of your Islamic journey, your spiritual journey. And I had come
Right.
to a point, and I have 5 kids now. I have a master's. I work full time.
Mm,
And I came to a point, maybe this was in 2011. No, wait, sorry, 2009. So this was 2009, where I had been what I thought was pursuing Islamic education through an
right,
institution.
right.
And eventually that institution was just like, listen, you're not really like here full time because,
Mm-hmm.
you have a family, you have a kid.
Right.
And by then, like I had gotten married and I had a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and I was still keeping up with like the work that was requested, right? I was still learning, I was still doing all the stuff that made me a student, right,
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
this path of Islamic learning. But the teachers there they made a decision and they were just like, you can basically, they said, go and just take care of your family, raise your kid, and you're good. Like, you don't need to continue your learning. And that
Right.
was
Of
like so devastating, right? You're just like, wait a second,
course.
like,
Of course.
I'm an adult. I know how
Exactly.
to balance my time and balance my pursuit,
Exactly.
but
Right.
it was just a big, door that kind of shut.
Right.
But
Right.
I wonder about how many women have struggled with that, with like, hey, I can try to keep learning or keep working on my Arabic or things
Yeah.
like that. And then people are just like, no, it's okay. It's not for you, because then they've been pigeonholed into like a specific stereotype. Like, now you're a mother now, so you can't do this anymore,
Exactly.
that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
like, do you have,
Yeah, I think we're doing a disservice to the women in our community. I think it's just this false idea of what a woman of knowledge is supposed to look like, right? Or what is she supposed to dress like, or what type of mentality is she supposed to have? Is she supposed to be funny? Is she supposed to be boring? Is she supposed to be serious? So I think we're really not helping our community. And what's interesting, I know for me, what's been very amazing, and I have yet to discover the true blessing of what I've experienced, what I've gained, is when I'm actually at school. So similarly to you, you're done your master's now, inshallah. I'm almost done. One more class. I'm
yay.
doing my master's in pastoral studies and psychotherapy. So my program is an interfaith setting. So it's really important. So interfaith and intercultural. And subhanAllah, I realized the importance of being spiritually and Islamically grounded to be able to engage in these settings in a way that is holistic and in a way you're not coming off as judgy. You're not coming off as I'm the best person here to answer this question, but you come in with a lot of humility and understanding, and it kind of opens up your horizon to the rest of the world. I really believe that if you learn Islamic knowledge from um, institutions and individuals that are very um, grounded in the prophetic character, and they embody that, it's easier for you to model that. Therefore, when you are in these settings, you're naturally gonna be part of the setting. You're gonna contribute. You're not gonna be following the conversation. You're actually gonna be leading the conversation. So I find that
Okay, so
very empowering.
A question for you though. What do you do then? For example, like the institution that I was in, 10 plus
Right.
years ago, 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
who very rooted in traditional, studies and stuff,
Right.
were not necessarily exuding
Mm-hmm.
that, like, I guess it's like just the motivation of just like, yes, it can happen, right? Or
Right.
you're still able to study. Like, so if other institutions, for example, or individuals are, let's say, even weaponizing prophetic teachings to say, hey, this as a woman should be your role, how would you respond to that? Like, how would any woman, like,
Yeah.
because I'm
So
38, I
yeah,
won't
I
say how
know.
old you are.
I know.
But like, how do you
I'm
respond to that
older
as
than you.
like, like if you have half a brain, then like, what do you say when people try to say, hey, this is your space now as a Muslim woman?
Yeah, they try to put you in a hole. Yeah, I don't agree with that. To be honest, I'm going to push back. I don't think we can define that as prophetic character or a way that is conducive to Islam at all, especially when they want to put you in that box. Because when we look at, let's say, the wives of the Prophet Sallallahu or the Sahabiyats, one story that comes to mind and that I love to share when I work with convert is the story of Al-Shifa. SubhanAllah, she came in Islam already with knowledge. She knew how to write. She knew the science of Uruqiyya. She knew so many things, right? And the Prophet ﷺ himself told her, I want you to teach my wife or my wives how to read and how to write and how to do certain things. So when institutions or individuals are trying to put you in a box or kind of stop you from going forward, you can easily be like, hey, friend. I'm not going to say dude because it happens with everyone. So it could be
Well,
male
men
and
and women
female.
alike, yeah,
Yeah, men
exactly.
and
Like
women
it's
alike,
just,
definitely. I don't want people to have this idea that, I'm like, I have an idea of the typical, person that we're talking. There's no such thing. It could be men. I've seen it done to me from women, actually. It's funny
yeah,
sometimes these situation comes from women. So you can be like, look at the perfect example of Al-Shifa and how the Prophet ﷺ empowered her with the knowledge that she had even before Islam and then when she became Muslim. So we,
yeah.
I,
I
yeah,
mean, the most pushback, I think if I've had to like have a collective study, the most pushback I've gotten is probably from Muslim women, like
definitely,
who are just like,
definitely.
wait, but like, how are you fulfilling your responsibility? This isn't for you anymore. Or a lot of women just have this like ingrained idea of just like,
Yeah,
once I do this, then I'll be able to do that. And so
exactly.
with like the institution I was in like a few, like I tried out different places and stuff. And
Hmm.
that one in particular stuck with me because they really were just like, well, now you have a family, so goodbye. And I was just like, whoa,
Yeah,
like that was harsh.
subhanallah.
But like, I mean, as again, because I had half a brain,
Right, of
I was
course.
still like, and I had husnul done with Allah, right? I was just like, I know
Right.
that if I'm trying to really be grounded in my faith, to learn Arabic so that I don't have to have like, I mean, I always wanted to be learning, right? So I wanted
Hmm.
to, for example, like learn Arabic. I wanted to understand what it was saying. I wanted to know more about hadith.
Right.
That if one door shut, then
Hmm.
Allah is so merciful and generous that like many other doors can open.
Definitely.
And I mean, I think that was important to just recognize because I think that initial self-talk I had was just, oh, wait, if this door is closed, does that mean that my door to Islamic learning is closed too? And maybe like then that should be my life. And then
Yeah.
obviously was not in a good
And
place.
that's kind of sad. Again, I'm going to say that because when you leave the Muslim community, so I'll give you an example. I went back to university after 20 years, right? 20 years.
Mhm.
And now things have changed where it's all about your competencies, the experiences that you have. What are you bringing in with you? So when you are in an interfaith setting and you see Christian women that are well versed in their religion, they're really rooted, they have spiritual leadership roles, then you kind of question yourself. You're like, oh, so as a Muslim woman, what does that mean for me, right? So and if you haven't been part of institution or communities that promote that spiritual female leadership, you're going to be lost. And sadly, it can actually impact your faith negatively because you're going to think that, oh, other communities have or other faith have way more to offer than my faith. Where for us, it's not about it's the opposite. It's just that that understanding was somehow lost. So,
Yeah,
and
when
I'm sure you've
I
seen
think
that as well, right? In your in your experience?
Well, I've seen, I mean, now, alhamdulillah, there's a lot more options available. Like when I
Right,
was first like, oh, I want to, just stop everything and start studying. Like I had read this book, because I didn't have any grounding that made sense to me. Again, like we had,
right,
I went to public school, we had Sunday
mhm,
school, which was, of course, husn done, everyone had best intentions, but with
right,
even
inshallah.
Sunday school, like
Yeah.
the angle was do this or, go to Jahannam. And you're just like, whoa,
Mhm.
like,
Halal
and
and
so
haram.
black and white, or like the context of Islam as a religion was a paragraph in a social studies book, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had read this book that was published in 1997, What Islam is All About, and I saw it in the
Right.
library at the Masjid the other week, and I was like, oh, it brought back so many memories because it was written by a native English speaker who really
Mm,
laid out what Islam was all about. He's a
right.
author of Complete Idiot's Guide to Islam too, which was helpful.
Okay.
But in all of this, like in learning and seeing like the disparity of like where Muslim women could be and like their
Definitely.
potential and how
Definitely.
we're not helping each other reach our potential either.
Right.
Something that you had said before strikes me from time to time, where you talk about church envy, and
Yes.
how Muslims, who convert and come to the faith, then experience life amongst Muslims, and
Yes.
they're like, wait a second, I had a really good time back there.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Definitely. So for me as a convert coming from that background of, I mean, although I was raised Catholic, I had extended family that were more Anglican or Protestant, so we used to go to their church, and that was fun. It was lively. There was music, and then there was food. So you had that really understanding of community in a religious setting. So now, you become Muslim, and mashallah, you are so proud of being Muslim. You love the faith. But then when you go in communities, you're like, why is everybody so dead? What's happening? No, you're ready to be like, takbir, Allah. You're ready to just be like, yeah, like, preach. And everybody's just sitting, like, turning their finger, and you're like, what's going on there, right? And obviously, as convert, you want to do you want to fit in. So you start thinking that this is the way to live your spirituality. And speaking of Islam, seeking Islamic knowledge, you also have this idea that this is the etiquette of a student of knowledge in
Mhm.
these settings. So sometimes it can be a bit frustrating, and it can be a bit, I don't know, there's a lot of confusion around that. So even in terms
It's
of
yeah.
identity, it's all confusion.
Yeah, it is because you want to, like, you're, the adult Muslim woman in you is like, hey, I'm a student of these sacred Islamic
Sciences, yeah.
fields, right? Yeah, like
Hmm.
I want to pursue higher education, beyond the Sunday school education I got about
Right.
Islam. And then in that journey, like I when I read that book, I was like very young. I was 13. And then that 14, 15-ish, I really fought to be in an institution. So that was my first experience in an Islamic studies institution.
Hmm.
And it was local, but then what I thought, because I'm looking up to this group and this institution and trying to mirror it because I'm thinking this is the
Mm.
standard of what
Yes.
it
Yes.
should look like, right? So
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
I should dress a certain way, then you should
Yeah.
act and behave a certain way, whatever. So a lot of that
Exactly.
individualism is stripped,
Yes.
like both subconsciously and also in like your attempt to be a good person, because you're like, oh, here's,
Exactly.
and we just totally forget, because if you're growing up and you're in like most public school settings will have some speck of diversity, right? So you're just like, at
Yeah.
least you have like your personality and things like that. So a lot of
Exactly.
that isn't just stripped away, but I think that was also a journey now, right? So then, from what, over, oh my God, over 20 years ago up until
Wow.
recently, of just like maybe 10 years ago, it was just like, wow, I can bring back my personality and
Right.
engage with my faith.
Right.
But that takes maturity and learning too. And then
It does.
also, but people are still judgmental, right? Because you don't fit
Definitely.
perhaps as someone who's
Definitely.
serious.
And you don't look like, for example, if you don't have, like, my name is like such a Christian name, Emmanuel, right? I always say Emmanuel, aka Eman, or Eman, aka Emmanuel. So if you don't have that Arabic name to kind of go with this title, and even I think I remember once, I forgot who mentioned it, but we're talking about, as women, we struggle a lot with imposter syndrome. So even now we're
Mhm.
having, alhamdulillah, I think it's good to have this conversation, But I found myself be like, okay, like student of knowledge, what does that mean? You're kind of, you're even scared to say these words in these settings, like
Yeah,
sadly.
there's a internal stereotype even amongst the Muslim community, right?
Yes,
You like
yes.
you're backwards and you're too stuffy. But
Right, right. Or it's this image of being perfect. Like let's say you are on a journey. Like I'm on a
mm,
journey to continue my Arabic. I'm not an Arabic speaker yet, inshallah, one day. But I'm on that
yes.
journey. Does that mean that you can't call yourself a student, or do you have to master the language? Because when you master the language, you become an expert, right? I mean, it's
Mm,
different. But now you're on that journey. So, when we're in school, we're students, we're qualifying. And if you're in a hospital setting to become a doctor, a physician, then you are a physician in training. Like, so there's this concept of you are being trained, right? But I wonder in our religious setting, specifically for women, and
mhm.
because I can only speak for me as a woman, I wonder.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Afshan. I wonder why can't we use these same terms and I'm asking myself, why don't you have the
Oh.
confidence to use those words in that way? You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
mean, I think it's a cultural shift, right? To rebrand what this looks like because people have a certain idea. We also, like I said, ingrained with certain views and a certain image and things like that.
Yeah,
But we have, I mean, in my studies, like I have a master's in nonprofit management. And when I look to seeing how people are academics and practitioners, there's a term that's called pracademics, right? They're
yes,
practitioners, people who are practicing, and then they have the academic
right,
background. So,
right.
like holding them both together with space, and it looks
Hmm.
really messy sometimes from the back end because, like you have two kids and you're studying, and you have your Arabic class, and you have your master's, and I'm sure you have clinicals and things that you do on
The
site
hubby,
with
don't forget the
people.
hubby. You remember the
Now
hubbies?
the
We can't forget
husband,
the
yeah,
husbands. Remember
shout
them?
out to that paying my mortgage. But in the back end, like, yeah, I have the five kids, I have the husband, I'll have extended family, I'll have the
Yes.
things that I have to do. So like I was, yesterday was a deadline for a bunch of Arabic assignments, and so
Yeah.
a crazy long work day, right? And then a whole bunch of like just curveballs after school with like, hey,
Right.
someone calls and says I want to stay after school, someone says I have to pick this up, I have a thing, I have an assignment, I broke something. And
Yeah.
then all of that comes together, but then I'm like, all right, you know what, I just have to sit and just do it as things are rolling. And so
And the
we
cooking,
were
right?
the
The
cook, yeah,
cooking.
I was like, I gotta go home and make rotis. But it doesn't fit a romantic image that we read about in, like, in books or we see in movies.
Yes.
Like I love, watching like gatherings of like spiritual people coming together and stuff, but like I'm just
Right.
like, that's not there 24/7 though, you
Right.
know.
It's true. It's true. And I think also you made a good point. I love the image that the image that you painted of the mother, the wife, the daughter-in-law, like the extended family that we are holding while doing this, while working and also taking care of our Islamic studies, right? I love that image. And I love it because it's not, I think it's changing the narrative of, again, what should we be doing or what is our role in a way that's more because we have different roles. We don't only have one role. And sometimes I think when we use this idea of woman has to be this way or that way or look a certain way to be in these sacred spaces, I think we're doing a disservice to women. And another thing
Mhm.
also, I think we have the discussion when I've realized for me that my kids, for example, Quran, my journey of Quran has been a little slower. I mean, I started my journey, I think my daughter was already 4 or 5 when she started learning. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, I should know this, right? So I think when our kids see us, attaching to the Quran and reading and doing these classes, we're modeling it for them. So it's easier
Mhm.
for them because oftentimes we pick our kids, we drop them everywhere, they go to this class and that class, but they never see us learning. So they're not
Yeah.
going to be able to retain it. You know what I mean? But if they see us doing it, I think there's more chance, inshallah, that they can retain it.
So
I had a question for you. I had a question because mashallah, you do a lot of work in, by the way, congratulations on your award.
It's a
fundraising and
nomination.
philanthropy.
Yes.
Nomination, I know. Nomination, but mashallah still. Alhamdulillah, it's
Thank
amazing.
you.
So how do you see, have you found that Islamic knowledge has been beneficial in that setting of fundraising and philanthropy, especially dealing with, I guess, individuals of other faith going out of the Muslim community?
I
I'm
think
really
outside
intrigued
the
by that.
It's wild because philanthropy is something that Muslim cultures are very much aware of. It's just not like that's a new label, right? Like, us for as believers giving is sadaqah, right? I'm going to give in sadaqah. A lot of it's very hush hush sadaqah.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't want any acknowledgement, recognition, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I balance between like studying about philanthropy and fundraising and then bringing it
Mm-hmm.
back to Muslim spaces, there's I mean so much again potential. I love this word potential because we're always
Mm-hmm.
striving to create excellence in what we do.
Right.
I think that going back and forth is kind of where my Islamic learning has benefited, is just like watching everything with this perspective of ihsan and
Mm.
husn dhan, right? Like there are people
Mm.
who, like the individuals give, or like, whether it's just the giving part is really interesting because everyone wants to
Right.
give, right? But
Right.
then it's
Mashallah.
what happens in that. And a lot of the best field practices, they call it, are things that are just about having ihsan with everyone else, right? Like
Right.
they're called like cultivating and stewarding and
Yes.
retention. Donor retention is a big thing too.
So many
And it's just
complicated terms.
all these terms, right? But it's all about like, I mean, the Prophet ﷺ told us to be good to people, to be kind to people, to reach out to people, be inclusive and to communicate. It's not just, he found something and he kept it to this really close circle and didn't spread it. Like he
Right.
had a strategy, right? So when we think about the
Right.
Prophet ﷺ in terms of strategy and how he went into every space with his humanness, a lot of times when I'm in
Mm.
these non-Muslim spaces, like the things that
Mm-hmm.
they're saying are, I'm just like, this is a hadith. This
Right.
is what Allah SWT told us
Uh,
to do. This is what I
right.
was in. I was in a conference yesterday actually where there was a chat about how when minority populations receive funding or sadaqah, like
Mm-hmm.
as organizations or individuals, they don't see themselves in the eyes of a person who can fund. They just see themselves on the receiving end, and therefore,
Right.
just on a lower scale compared to
Mm-hmm.
others. But as Muslims, we know when we give, we're not hounding people about like, oh, hey, I gave you this much money, like I whatever. Like we're
Right.
actually encouraged to forgive even the loans, right, that we give, and
Yes.
we don't have to,
SubhanAllah.
but it's something that you can do. And sadaqah is something that comes from the heart,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
there's
SubhanAllah.
generosity of your spirit and your heart. So
Right.
I mean, that's a cool question, but like so much of it is like, then in the conference they were just like, we don't want the minorities to feel like they are only on the receiving end, so we want to
Of
see more
course.
people of color who are giving
Giving.
and yada yada. And then this
Exactly.
lady's like, by the way, the Black church has been sustaining itself for 250
Hello.
years,
Exactly. Facts. Facts,
along with
mashallah.
all the other communities back home who have,
Right.
like who haven't been on that end. But
Right.
that's a cool question. But I feel like it goes hand in hand, and I feel like so much of our Islamic learning is already like in like we've done it better than like
Exactly.
what
Exactly.
academia has told us. But in your field, like you're working one-on-one with people, and that's
Yes.
really intense
Yeah.
stuff. So if I mean,
SubhanAllah.
could you
Yeah.
imagine without the Islamic
So
learning?
no, I couldn't imagine it, to be honest, because the Islamic knowledge gives me it's my flashlight. It's the tool that, okay, so I guess I have to give you more background. So I do work, I'm doing my placement, clinical placement in a hospital as a, I guess in the US would say chaplain. In Canada, the
Mm,
term used is spiritual care practitioner.
yeah.
So I'm training in that. And subhanAllah, I see everyone, Um, and because the program is you have to interact with people according to their understanding. You meet them where they are at spiritually, but without removing or putting aside your own spiritual faith. So that's very
Mm,
powerful. So I've been, subhanAllah, providing care for people from all over the world, different nationalities, different age group.
yeah.
And it's been very empowering because, subhanAllah, you see that in a moment of that they're the most vulnerable when there's so much suffering, so much pain, as a Muslim, I'm able to provide that care. in that setting, I think it's very, very empowering for us as Muslims. Because oftentimes I find the discussions are always around how do we tailor our care for Muslims in particular, like coming from the non-Muslim community. So the non-Muslim practitioners would want, how do I provide spiritual care for Muslim patients, right? And me in my head is, how do I provide care for everybody as a Muslim, keeping my
Mm.
faith? And subhanAllah, I've had amazing stories. I've held hand with women that have been so impacted by my care. And it's interesting when people are like, when I tell them, if you need a Bible, I can bring you a Bible. You should see their face. Because for
Oh.
them, it's impossible to be religious and be understanding and be tolerant and be open. It's impossible. But we know in our own text, we are told that we have to care for the people of the book. We have to respect everyone, right? The Prophet ﷺ interacted with his neighbors. Like he cried when there was a body of someone who was from another faith who passed in front of him, and the Sahaba saw that. Why are you crying? Isn't that a soul, right? So it's been very, for me, it's been very powerful, and I think I'm still processing everything because it's so impactful, and people are they're just waiting for people. I feel that the broader community of non-Muslims are waiting for us Muslims to step up in these roles. That's what I
Mm.
feel. I don't know what you feel about that, but that's really what I feel because they're eager to learn, they're very curious, and they're so grateful to see people of faith interacting with them in a way that is authentic, vulnerable, and beautiful. That's what I found in my
Yeah. I mean,
experience.
and you're contributing to society. Like that's, I mean, it's so important. It's not just that you're, learning the skill set and you're like, I'm only going to keep it to myself, but you're on the
Right,
grounds
right.
and you're frontlining, subhanAllah. All right. Well, I have to hop off because that was my lunch break
MashaAllah. Okay.
hour. I
That was
usually just have
fun.
a sandwich. Yeah. Well, thank you for hopping on with
That
me.
was
I was like,
Alhamdulillah.
sometimes I think we've done that before. We just had lunch with each other on Zoom, but
Yes,
got,
those lunch
this
breaks are
fun conversation. Yeah, lunch
fun
breaks, but
conversation.
peanut butter
Mhm.
and jelly with some, no, sorry, peanut butter with honey and some chocolate chips on toasted
Mm.
bread is wild. It'll blow your mind.
I still
You're
have my
resting,
coffee. I was
sorry.
just finishing
Okay.
my coffee. Alhamdulillah. So this was
All
fun.
right.
Inshallah, we
This
can
was,
do it again.
alhamdulillah. Yeah, thank you.
Inshallah.
And may Allah make it easy for everyone who wants to pursue Islamic knowledge, women
Ameen.
of
Ameen.
all the responsibilities and all the backgrounds. Like everything we do,
Ameen.
everything we
Inshallah.
come from is only going to enhance it, inshallah. All right. Love you so much.
Ameen.
Take care.
Love you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.